And we are back here at 7:07 a.m. on KFYO Mornings with Dave and Matt, and now with City Councilman Randy Christian in the house. Good morning, Councilman.
Good morning.
Glad to have you here. I guess the big news, according to the AJ, if you look at the story above the fold this morning, is Lime scooters.
Well, they're here to stay.
Okay, the City Council met last night. What did you guys do to us? What's up with the Lime scooters?
Well, what it was we were getting close to the first year kind of probationary period to see how they're going to work.
Yeah, how are they working?
They seem to be working okay. If you look at what's happening, their coverage area, and this is my opinion, they threw Lime scooters all the way out to 82nd and Milwaukee for a while, and that's kind of their marketing or their model, and you'll see less and less of them that far out, and they're kind of more concentrated around the downtown area and everything. And
I think it would be a waste of money.
Well, but I think that they throw them out there just to see how far out they can go.
We had 4 or 5 of them at Bill Miller Park there, where I live in Melanie Park South.
They will put them in some park areas, but
I see people riding them in the park. I don't know why. You're supposed to walk the walking track there in the park.
Well, to each his own. But the folks that do run Lime, they've been very responsive to any problems. I've had a couple of people call me and say they're all stacked up in front of their businesses, and they get to them right away. I do think that they have fewer people working for them in regards to students. So we did have a few more calls during the summer months, but now that they've got some students out there to manage them and put them in their place. As a matter of fact, I saw them all the way up and down the street along Glenna Goodacre yesterday morning. They were lined up very nice and neat and ready to go. Yeah. So, but I think there's a place for them. But in my personal opinion, that's in and around the tech area.
So, was there any discussion about them being on sidewalks and the handicap accessibility?
They should not be there. That's the reason I'm saying we call them when they are there, and they're pretty prompt to get them moved and things like that. But no, they shouldn't be obstructing those handicapped areas or the handicap accessible sidewalks.
Well, okay. Is there rules as far as in the city in the rules that y'all set in place for them? Was that part of it, or is it just part of the code already?
That's part of the code. I mean, you shouldn't be obstructing that even with a bicycle or anything.
Well, so there are people. So there is a code. There is rules about using the scooters. Then,
as where they are placed. Let's put it that way.
You can get a DWI.
Are there not rules about driving them?
Well, not really. I mean,
that's what I'm getting at. There's really no. It's kind of like the Wild West then with Lime scooters. If there's nobody controlling what they do, if you run over people, if you're not supposed to run over people with a bicycle.
That's called assault, Dave.
You're not supposed to run over people when you're jogging or walking. I mean, sure that those are rules, but
they have to actually follow the same rules as a car. Do they not? A bicycle does as well,
right?
Because it's considered a motorized vehicle.
Yeah,
and you can't drive them drunk. In fact, there was bicycles. There's been stories about people getting DWIs on those things.
Oh, yeah. It's driving while under the influence.
Yeah,
on a Lime scooter?
Yeah, absolutely.
You cannot drive.
Come on.
Not here. There's been reports of that,
not in
Lubbock, but yeah.
But it is against the law. It is a motorized vehicle, and if a police officer stops you, you can get a DWI.
You could. I don't know. I'd like to check, but you could probably get that if you were driving under the influence on a bicycle. It's very possible. Yeah.
Oh, we need to check on that.
Well, I'll get right on it, Dave.
You're thinking about how many times you could call the police now, aren't you?
I'm just thinking about. I spend a lot of time at Buffalo Lake, and out there, every homeowner has a golf cart.
Hey.
And
you can get
one of their favorite things.
You can get that too.
Yeah,
one of their favorite things is to get your drink and get in the golf cart and go running around seeing your buddies.
Well, then go do a citizen's arrest and tell us how that worked out for you.
Do what now?
Go do a citizen's arrest and tell us how that worked out for you.
No, I'm not going to do that.
What I'm thinking is they're about to ostracise you out there at Buffalo Lake.
Yeah, you outed a bunch of people right here on the radio.
You take away their beer and their golf carts.
Well, there would be a riot if they did that because that's the favorite thing to do at Buffalo Lake.
You think about it, you could get arrested for public intoxication walking.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's true. Yes, I understand that. Well, we have a texture this morning, Randy, that says, please, and this I'm going to have to kind of read between the lines because apparently voice quoted this to or dictated it.
interesting.
Please talk to your upcoming guest. That would be you.
No, I'm here already. You're
Yeah.
next. That's the guy behind
Well,
me.
he
Who's-
might have been
Well,
earlier.
no, this is aimed at you. Please talk to your upcoming guest about tax increase. Don't know anyone wanting it, but we're being misled about how the council and parish, I guess they're talking about Judge Parish,
I don't know anything
want
about
to
the county.
receive, they want more money on the backs of the taxpayers, and we're doing just fine already. That's
Back up. What happened? I don't know what happened with the county.
They didn't do a tax increase.
I thought there
held
was
the
talk
same.
about it. I
that's
didn't hear
that's
the
not
report.
your pay above your pay grade.
Well,
in the county.
the last thing I read from them, and we will have Judge Parrish on in 2 weeks. But the last thing I read, they're not raising the taxes, but they're keeping it the same.
Okay, because
And
I'd heard
which
that
is
there was a talk that they were going to raise it. So I didn't
with
know whether they did or
appraisal.
not.
Well, there was a lot of talk that they were going to have to because last year they took it down. They lowered
they
it.
did.
Okay, but what about the city?
Yeah, we're going up a penny.
Okay,
On
that's-
property taxes.
On which one? Property taxes.
Yeah.
Which
Up
is
a
about
penny.
2%.
Which for the average home of 150,000, how much we talking about? there?
$15.
Yeah. Yeah, we
$15.
were at this time last year, and I even when we were here last time, we were talking about possibly it being a two penny.
How much will that raise the city? The penny.
I don't remember the exact number, but I can get it for you. But it's most
Sizable.
of that money is going to be going to our public safety to build the new police stations.
Don't forget the garage.
That's a totally different. That's
Y'all are
that's
using
very
public
mis-
safety
no,
money for that.
No, that was
No,
not
it
a
wasn't-
part of the original deal.
Oh yeah, but it wasn't you I was talking to. It was the other councilman we've had in here. But they said one of the ways that they're going to pay for that garage
Savings
is
from the public safety.
savings. Well, that's public safety money. But they said that they can use that because they're going to be putting the courts and the headquarters downtown.
Correct, because where the headquarters is now going to be was not a part of the original plan for the Citizens Tower campus, as I put it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where that's coming from.
So
So yeah, I'm not going to. Yeah, we raised it a penny.
yeah.
And we originally intended to raise it 2 cents, but because some of the appraisals that went up, I think it went up maybe $10,000 to $20,000 on the average household from last year. I think it was something that maybe about $10,000 to $15,000 somewhere in that neighborhood is where the average house is appraised now, about that much more than it was last year.
And y'all received a lot of sales tax.
We had a very nice bump in the sales tax, which is a little bit more than what was projected. And then the property tax from new properties that weren't on the rolls last year was about $6 million, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Well,
So-
I mean, the city is growing by leaps and bounds, and I mean, I have to assume that the city is getting more and more money. They're building, businesses and homes that are coming online and starting to pay taxes. More people working, paying taxes,
Buying stuff.
and buying stuff.
Yeah.
And so they pay sales taxes and property taxes if they own a home. Well, if they're living anywhere, even if you're renting, you're paying property
Yeah,
taxes.
indirectly. Of course you are. Of course you are. But as you said, we're growing, which also means in my opinion, the basic needs of the city are growing as well. As far as new roads, improving roads, we once again put lots of money into paving streets that have never been paved before.
Well,
So
I'm all for that.
Well, when somebody says we're raising the taxes, but we're growing to the point that there's bigger needs than we've ever had before as well.
Let's take a quick break here. 7:16. This is Dave King and Matt Martin on KFYO this morning with Lubbock City Councilman Randy Christian. Text lines are open. If you have a question for the councilman, 806-680-2790 is the number. We'll be back with more in a moment. And we are back here on KFYO Mornings, 95.1 FM, 790 AM, KFYO, with Dave and Matt in the morning. And Councilman Randy Christian with us. Well, Citizens Tower.
Yes.
It's coming on along. There's a picture of it in the paper this morning.
Oh, really?
And it...
Our paper? Okay, just checking.
It doesn't seem to me like they've made a lot of progress since I've seen it last, but... give us an update on it.
Well, most of it's now enclosed, so a lot of work's going on inside.
Yeah,
get
and it was
ready.
just concrete inside before. So
Yeah, it's but we, as I understand, we're still targeted to move in sometime in December. So,
Really?
you know, clean up your Santa Claus suit and be ready to come down there to cut the ribbon for us, Dave.
I'll be glad to.
Yeah, that's
Of course, I charge. You understand, but still.
well. Then we don't. We'll have that'll be another thing that we'll have to raise the taxes
Well,
to make
Matt,
that happen.
Matt will do it for free.
Oh, okay.
if you
Yeah. No, but I have not taken a tour of it just because I haven't, but I want to. But yeah, it's scheduled to open the doors sometime in December. Of course, my dad was in commercial construction, and so I'm kind of always leery of those dates that are thrown out. That something can
they
happen.
never meet the original projection.
Well, it would be nice. I think they're doing everything they can to make that December date.
We have a texter this morning. Now, this is one that's off the wall I hadn't heard about. It said, could you ask the councilman about oil leases in Lubbock County and if it's ever going to happen where we actually drill around this area? That's from John D.
Not a clue.
Not a clue.
Well, first off, I'm going to say this. The city councilman only has to do with the city of Lubbock. Yeah. He's not going to be able to do anything with. But I'm also
unless he's talking about city land.
Well, that's all. But we do have a couple of we get some royalties from some oil leases in northern part of Lubbock. That's a very small amount of money that goes to.
Yeah. But Lubbock County doesn't have the kind of oil a lot of the counties around Lubbock have.
Well, there is some, if I remember right, and I'm probably speaking out of turn, but if you go north and west, northwest Lubbock County, you'll see a little. Yeah. But yeah, we lost out on that deal. Everything north and south of us, there's a lot of counties that are north and south of us. Mostly north is mostly south, I would say. Yeah.
Well, even west.
Well, that's true. But Lubbock County itself, I don't know of a whole lot of oil production in Lubbock County.
Yeah.
Okay. Another texter this morning says, does Mr. Christian support the city granting event permits in city parks for pride festivals where men are, it says, drag racing in women's clothing? Women in drag, or I guess wearing women's clothing.
What?
I don't know.
Well, now, I'm going to help.
Well, this is the first. I'm just wondering if this has happened. I guess is my question.
But that is something that the city can't do much about. If somebody asks for a permit to have something in a park, and they follow all the rules and regulations around the park, then there's not much that can be done about that.
So you're
now, you can get mad and angry and irritated, but the fact is, there's nothing they can do about it.
So there's no rule that a man can't wear a dress? Is that what you're saying?
No,
but vice versa.
Well, the other point is that you would be considered, what I guess,
discriminatory.
Discriminatory if you do, and the city would open itself to lawsuits, and they're not going to do that.
And that's true. That's true. Yeah,
but that's not an issue that we've had to address that I remember.
Not that I'm aware of. I'm sure that there's been a couple of folks that, as they say, transgender, that's probably dressed and drag, as they say, then walked in parks that I'm not aware of. But it hasn't become an issue.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we did have the issue of the prayer at the city council opening the city council meeting.
Yep.
Did we not? Did you hear much backlash on that?
Not at all. Actually, I had some comments from some folks that were willfully kind of protesting that took place, and one individual that I'm not going to name the name. They went and talked to the young lady that was there representing the atheist community, and she was very gracious to that young lady. That she told her that she'd be praying for her, and I think that was very appropriate, and so. We've done that and see what happens next.
Yeah, my point is that if you do an invocation, you have to invoke some type of higher power, and that was something that didn't happen. But she did a speech.
I looked up,
that was my only.
When I looked up the word invocation, there was some when you drill down to invocation, it does not always necessarily have to invoke. It invokes something of positive nature was what I saw in some definitions of invoking.
Call on a demon, I guess, instead.
Well, I guess you could, but in this case, they were invoking their pride in the city, and so it all worked out well.
Okay.
But anyway, a couple of things, and then I got to take. A friend of mine, I got a shout out to my friend Dale Little, because every time he see me, he always tells me how good a job I did when I came on KFYO. So I got to give him a shout out this morning. So, but I will tell you the other thing was Bobby Cox. I showed you all that bottle of wine, in 1987. What was 1987?
Bobby Cox usually listens. I don't know if he's listening right now. Maybe later, but he.
Yeah, I've been meaning to do that. In 1987. Pheasant Ridge, Cabernet Sauvignon, and I was going to ask, is that still wine?
No,
it's still wine in that bottle.
So has it been standing up like that?
No.
It's been sideways.
No, yeah, I just took the
are
picture
you going
like
to
that.
donate that to charity or what? What's the deal with
United Christian Fund?
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. That's a good and worthy fund.
No, but
Your wife's dress fund.
Shoes.
We have a texture.
all I'm asking is,
we have
do
a
I get
texture
invited
this
to the
morning.
party when
Yeah,
you open it?
we'll crack it open. We'll find out what it tastes like.
Okay, now I could answer this, but I'm going to let you answer it, Randy. It says, using Matt's logic, the Ku Klux Klan would be able to get a park permit in Stumpy Hamilton Park.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they did. That's happened across the country in other communities.
You can't
I don't think
stop
so.
them. You can't stop them.
That's a hate group, is it not? Are they not
As
defined
long as they're
a hate
civil,
group?
as long as they're civil and they don't cause a disturbance and they
first-
work within the parameters of that are of the city or whatever city that is.
Okay, back with more after this. And we are back here at 95.1 FM, 790 AM, KFYO Mornings. Dave and Matt broadcasting from the Thacker Jewelry Studio. Engagement rings and custom jewelry at thackerjewelry.com. See it all there. Again, talking to our city councilman, Randy Christian. Would like to remind you, if you have a question for the councilman, you can text us at 806-680-2790, or you can call us at 770-5790. Randy, my thing is, it seems as though we're having a shooting a day in Lubbock. We were searching for a new police chief. What can we do in the city of Lubbock to put the quietus on some of these gangs that I am told is where all this shooting is coming from? I'm hearing from the sheriff and our former police chief that if you're not in the drug business, you don't have to worry too much about that.
Well,
but I do.
Well, the sheriff, I've heard him a number of times, and I've had meetings with the sheriff, and I think it's somewhat indicative of I'm going to call it, and I don't mean to make little light of it, but growth pains of Lubbock, Texas, that we're now a much bigger target for gangs of all kinds of drug.
Why can't we make it uncomfortable for the gangs here in
I
Lubbock?
think they're doing it now that they have the gang task force. I think it's a lot better than it used to be, but I think it's going to be a problem an urban problem, if you would, that we're always going to be having to tackle and do everything we can.
True. But I would sure like to make a concerted effort in
Well,
this
I
city.
think we are. I do, especially when the gang task force was put into play. You see a lot of the shootings, but I also see a lot more arrests of gang members and bunches of them, not just one at a time.
Over 70 gangs in Lubbock, they're saying.
Doesn't surprise me, but I think that's, in my opinion, that's also part of our open borders problem. The gangs are moving in. It's not just drug dealers; it's a drug industry.
Oh, there's no doubt.
And that's the thing that I think that people need. This is a very well organized, well orchestrated. They run it just like a business. That's the reason they call them cartels. They don't call them gangs anymore. We're doing everything and we will do more. But I think it will be a continual problem. Because look at our country in a respect, and I'm going to state my opinion on some of the things. Some of these home invasions. You look at the age of some of these people that are doing the home invasions, 18, 19, or less. I think somebody's putting them up to it. There's somebody else that are grabbing these kids and saying, "Okay, you're going to go do this, and you're going to get something out of it, and you're going to split." It's almost like pimps, in my opinion, because you think of home burglaries. Would a burglar ever want to break into a house that somebody's in They don't want to see people. They don't want to
They don't want a chance
people.
of getting shot.
But when you do a home invasion, you are in there to do more than just steal stuff. You're in there to terrorize people. You're there to make a mark on that particular neighborhood and community.
Well,
we're here.
But again, I will agree that I think most home invasions that we're talking about, that's drug related. This is somebody that didn't pay a drug bill or got crossways with a dealer, and they go in their home.
I don't know whether there may be somebody there may be somebody that is in that home that they invaded that's related to a drug dealer. You think about all the stories you hear of somebody, cartel members sending somebody, a guy's the head of one of his family members in a shoebox or in a suitcase. I think that the dynamics of what's going on in here was what frightens me, as well as the number of them.
It's just, I would just like your assurance as a city councilman that you're doing everything. And I realize you don't have a magic wand, but I want to hear that our city council is aware of this problem and that you're doing everything you can to support our police department in making it uncomfortable for these gangs.
They're raising your taxes for it, Dave.
Yeah. Well, we did, as we mentioned off the air, we're adding 10 more officers to the police department. The other thing I'll just go into, when we were doing work session, and then our interim chief was telling us about a new way they're going to schedule officers on patrol. They did a very in-depth research of what part of town and at what time of day and what day of the week that at most crimes or a number of crimes, there's an increased percentage of crimes going on. So they're adjusting schedules. So we'll have some overlapping schedules based upon that research, though. So when those times that they found out,
dead zone.
There'll be more people on the streets on those times that they discovered when they were doing this research, which I thought was very, very smart.
Yeah.
So another question we had, how's the search for the chief of police going? Because I know that having a new chief may help as well.
Well,
and I know our interim's doing a great job.
A new chief. You have to have a new chief, but I think that our interim chief and the folks that are in, at the top of the rung, so to speak, with the LPD is doing a great job. But of course, we're looking for a new chief, and as I understand, we got a short list now. So, as far as exactly when we'll be hiring, I'll let you know next time. But I think it will be soon.
I'm going to make this very, very clear. If you hire Art Acevedo, I'm leaving Lubbock. I will not live in that town.
If you what?
Hire Art Acevedo, chief of police over Austin, then move to Houston.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I know who you're talking about. Okay. Yeah. I don't think he made the short list.
Oh, good.
Okay. He could have. Who knows? But now I know who you're talking about. Yeah. Okay. I thought Acevedo. I don't think I've met anybody with LPD named Acevedo.
Okay. We have a texter this morning, Councilman, that says, "Councilman, all due respect, but everyone knows where the kingpins live. Why are they still on the streets?"
You have to catch them doing something.
Well, I was going to say, on top of that, you got to be able to get a warrant. You got to be.
And if you're going to arrest somebody, I hope that they have the goods on them, the way they can put them away for a long time.
Unfortunately, knowing something and proving something are two different things.
Absolutely.
And in our society, you have to prove something.
Absolutely.
You may know they're a kingpin, but can you prove it?
The guy that lives down the street and runs the red lights all the time, but we got to catch him doing it first.
Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and take that break, and then we'll be back. 7:42 a.m. Again, the text lines are open if you want to ask City Councilman Randy Christian a question. Christian question. You can do so. Text at 806-680-2790. We'll be back with more after this. Okay, News Talk, 95.1 FM, 790 AM, KFYO, and we are back with Randy Christian this morning. We have some texters that says, are there any large bonds that were approved years ago that are finally going to roll off of the taxpayer rolls and result in a tax cut? Councilman?
We are rolling those off a little bit at a time, but as it relates to tax cuts, I think we're still a few years away from being able to look at some tax cuts based upon some issuance of bonds. But that is, we are continually decreasing that and working on all debt in regards to the city.
So has the debt gone down?
Yes, it has.
Okay, and that's one of the reasons I think you've gone to more of a cash system as far as police cars and whatnot.
There's a few items on there that most all of the vehicles, whether they're police vehicles or maintenance vehicles or whatever, whenever possible, I think about 90-something% of those are all cash purchases.
Some of them are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh my gosh, yes! We're going to purchase another striping machine because we need
Another
it.
what now?
Road striping machine.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, like that was like $600,000 in that neighborhood,
Yikes.
and then in fire trucks are not particularly cheap either.
So
But
What does one of those fire trucks run?
$500,000 or so.
Well, and we had the story last week about one of the little towns around here just bought a brand new fire truck.
It depends upon. We're talking about the big ones. Like there's some that are lesser, but that's we're talking about
one of the
six
little,
digits.
Little
easy.
towns around here bought a brand new fire truck and took it out on the road, and there was something wrong with the wheel, and it caught fire and burned up. Brand spanking new.
Really?
Yeah,
That shouldn't be.
That wasn't us, though.
That should be under warranty.
Well, let's hope
Good thing
so.
it was a fire truck; they could put the fire out pretty easily.
Yeah, you'd think, wouldn't you?
So, Councilman, we did have a question here, and I don't know, but it said, did the councilman vote for or against the oil change placement on Avenue Q?
I voted for it.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason why you wouldn't have. That piece of property, I forget what was there originally, but one of the things that made me decide that it was a good idea, that piece of property has been vacant for 11 years. We had an opportunity.
This is a vacant lot?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right next to the 7-Eleven, it's basically across the street from the Denny's restaurant on Avenue Q. There's a couple of pieces. There's some stuff had been torn down recently. I think the larger one to the north was that hotel that was there for a while. But it's going to be one of those Take 5. It was a zoning change, and we saw some renderings of what it's going to look like. Aesthetically, it's going to be very nice. It's going to add some jobs. We're going to put some more, some business on the tax roll. So I don't know why we wouldn't have. It was a 4-2 vote. The mayor was out last night, so that's the way the vote came down.
So our time's moving pretty fast. One thing we want to talk about a little bit was the Citibus, and they're looking at changing the routes to be more efficient, I guess, or at least they're getting a survey to see how all that's working.
Study, yeah.
Yeah. How is that coming along, and how complicated is that issue? We
have not heard back from that yet because we knew it was going to be quite an extensive search to work with the communities that are major affected by those routes. So I don't have an answer for you. We haven't had a first report on that study yet. That's very complicated. The Citibus program is very, very expensive. We'll see what happens.
How much of Citibus comes from city, finance-wise?
It's about $400,000. Is what we put into it annually.
Okay, and then is there
There's
state
there are some
US grants and stuff
there are some grants. Yes, there are some grants. Once again, one of the big expenses is the buses themselves, and we're mandated. And as I remember, and I'll get this qualified, but as I remember in the past, you even had to get federal funding for buses. They had to be the larger buses, which I think hamstrings us. And being able to attack the cost of them.
Well, Randy, we were having this conversation yesterday. Do you have any idea what, percentage of city buses are being utilized? What kind of in other words, what kind of ridership are we seeing with a city bus?
It's relatively low.
That's kind of what I would think, because when I notice them, I just don't see a lot of passengers on them. And another question, we're talking about buying some new city buses. Yesterday, a few days ago, I pulled up next to a Colt, and I don't know the difference between Citibus and Colt. This is the trolley.
Well, that's just a fun little marketing tool.
Okay, but it's a Citibus.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This was a brand new bus I saw.
Oh, yeah.
So we've already purchased some new buses.
Yeah, we usually purchase, not every year, but some of them, they still put a lot of miles on them.
Well,
and
this
so
was
we're
a
taking them out of service.
nice bus.
Oh, yeah. But yes, there's
a big, very big bus. Okay,
but that's what I'm saying is that we are required to get money, any grant money for the purchase of those buses. We have to buy. The government requires us to purchase the bigger buses.
Okay, we'll take a quick break and come back in just a few minutes that we'll have to close things out. Okay, it is 7:57 a.m., and we are back here on KFYO Mornings with Matt and Dave and City Councilman Randy Christian. And I want to give you an opportunity, Randy, to, if there is some issue that you want to cover, I want you to have the floor and tell us what's on your mind specifically.
The only thing I wanted to share with you is that's that good part or fun part of being a councilman, which opens the door to be a part of some good things. I went to the unveiling of the Congressman Mahon's historical marker. That man was incredible. We'd be a very different community if it hadn't been for him. He was what you would consider a true statesman, and there's so few of those left. I had a chance to introduce the Congressional Medal of Honor Character Development Program, and I wish you guys had looked that up on the Internet. It's something that's being pushed out by the Congressional Medal of Honor Foundation, and it's based on some principles that I think all the Congressional Medal of Honor recipients live by before and after their award. Roosevelt School is implementing it, but I'll leave that and you guys can talk about it maybe later when you look it up. But I had a chance. Danny Koch, our friend Danny Koch, is one of the, as I'm going to affectionately say, he was the instigator of that, and I got a chance to present that to the City Council yesterday. And then a couple of other things is the next big thing I think that's going to be on the radar is short-term rentals. And I'll probably be back to talk to you guys about that.
So are y'all looking at just taxes for short-term rentals?
We're putting some rules and regulations that we've never had on short-term rentals too.
You're going to get a fight.
I know. I've already been down that road and talking to several groups that, but most of them are not opposed to the things that we're recommending.
Okay.
Okay.
Like Airbnb.
Airbnb.
Okay. I wasn't following you completely there.
Yeah, that's the short-term STRs.
Okay. Anyway, I hear the music, and we're going to have to run. Randy, again, City Councilman Randy Christian, everyone, and always glad to have you out on the day.
Watch out for the little kids going to school today.
Boy, isn't that the truth? Because there's going to be a whole bunch of them. This will be their first day. Okay, back with more after this.